A dark, empty road stretches out before us, illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon. It snakes its way through the landscape, disappearing into the shadows. Who knows what lurks out there in the darkness? Ever wonder what lurks on the long, lonely highways? Buckle up as we dive into 3 terrifying road trip horror stories. These tales of terror on the open road will make you think twice before picking up that next hitchhiker or veering off onto that deserted side road. Picture this. It's late, you're cruising down a seemingly endless desert highway. The only sounds are the hum of your engine and the occasional howl of some distant unseen creature. You glance over and see a lone figure illuminated by your headlights, a hitchhiker. Now common sense dictates that you don't pick up strangers, especially not on a desolate stretch of highway like this. But something compels you to pull over. Maybe it's their pleading eyes, or maybe it's just the bone-deep silence of the night getting to you. Whatever the reason, you find yourself rolling down the window and offering them a ride. The hitchhiker slides into the passenger seat, bringing with them a wave of cold air despite the warmth of the night. They thank you, their voice a low murmur, almost lost in the hum of the engine. You try to make small talk, to break the tension. But there's something off about their demeanor. They only offer short, clipped responses, their eyes darting nervously around the car. It's like they're expecting something to jump out of the shadows at any moment. Finally, the hitchhiker points you toward a small, rundown town just a few miles up the road. They say they have family there. Haven't seen them in years. You nod along, trying to ignore the feeling of unease that settled in your gut. Something about their story feels off. As you approach the town marked only by a weather-beaten sign and a flickering gas station light, the hitchhiker asks you to pull over at the edge of town. They say they'd rather walk the rest of the way, want to surprise their family. You're about to tell them it's no trouble to drive them right to their doorstep, but before you can speak, they open the car door and step out. The hitchhiker turns back to you, a strange, almost sad smile on their face. They start to say something, but you're distracted by a passing truck, its headlights momentarily blinding you. When you look back, the hitchhiker is gone. Vanished. You scan the side of the road, your heart pounding in your chest. There's nowhere they could have gone so quickly. Confused and more than a little freaked out, you decide to just go. Get as far away from this creepy town as possible. But as you pull away, you can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. You glance back one last time and that's when you see it. A single, solitary headstone on the side of the road, barely visible in the dim moonlight. You can't quite make out the name, but the dates send a chill down your spine. They match up perfectly with the lifespan the hitchhiker had described to you. Shaken to your core, you floor it, leaving the town and its ghostly hitchhiker in your rearview mirror. But the memory of that night, of the vanishing passenger and the lonely grave stays with you. A chilling reminder that some things we encounter on the open road are best left undisturbed. The open road at night. It's practically a cliché in horror movies, right? But there's a reason why this scenario is so damn unsettling. When it's just you, your headlights cutting through the darkness, anything could be out there, or in there. This story takes place on a moonless night. A young couple, let's call them Sarah and Mark, are driving home from a weekend getaway. The trip started off romantic, filled with laughter and shared playlists. But as the miles ticked by and fatigue set in, a palpable tension settled over the car. It started subtly, a creak from the back seat that could easily have been dismissed as the car settling. But as the night wore on, the noises became more frequent, more insistent. A soft tapping sound, like fingernails drumming on the headrest. A low guttural growl emanating from the shadows behind them. At first, Sarah and Mark brushed it off. They blamed the noises on the old car, the wind, anything but the truth that was slowly dawning on them. They weren't alone. As they drove, the temperature in the car seemed to plummet. Sarah could see her breath misting in the air, even though the heater was on full blast. Mark gripped the steering wheel tighter, his knuckles white as bone. He could feel eyes on the back of his neck, a heavy, oppressive presence filling the car. It was Sarah who saw it first. A fleeting glimpse of a figure in the rearview mirror, a gaunt, shadowy form with eyes that glowed an eerie red in the darkness. She didn't say anything, afraid that if she acknowledged it, it would become real. But the fear etched on her face was all Mark needed to see. He knew then that they were in serious trouble. Every instinct screamed at them to stop the car, to get out and run as fast as they could, but something held them back. A strange paralysis gripped them, fueled by the growing terror in their hearts. The entity in the back seat made its presence known in increasingly unsettling ways. Scratches appeared on the leather seats as if claws had raked across them. A foul, sulfurous odor filled the car, choking the air from their lungs. And then, the whispers started. Soft, hissing voices that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, taunting them, threatening them. As the first rays of dawn began to pierce the darkness, the entity finally retreated, melting back into the shadows from whence it came. Sarah and Mark were left trembling in the cold, pale light of day, forever changed by their encounter with the Backseat Phantom. They vowed never to speak of what they had experienced, fearing that to do so would invite it back into their lives. But the memory of that night, of the unseen passenger and the terror that gripped them, would forever haunt their dreams. You know how some roads just feel off? Maybe it's the way the trees seem to press in on either side, or the way the air grows heavy and still. Whatever the reason, you get this primal urge to turn around, to get back to somewhere that feels safe. This is the story of a group of friends who ignored that feeling and paid the price. There were 4 of them, college buddies on a road trip to a music festival. They were young, full of life, and completely unprepared for the nightmare that awaited them on Shadow Road. It all started innocently enough. They took a wrong turn somewhere in the middle of nowhere, their GPS leading them astray. Shadow Road, according to a weathered sign that looked older than time itself. They laughed it off, figuring they'd just double back and find their way back to the main highway. But Shadow Road had other plans. The further they drove, the stranger things got. The trees lining the road grew closer, their branches twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes. The sun, which had been shining brightly just moments before, vanished behind a thick canopy of leaves, plunging them into an unnatural twilight. And the air grew heavy with the scent of decay and the weight of unseen eyes. Their laughter died down, replaced by an uneasy silence broken only by the sound of their own ragged breaths. The car, a trusty old beater that had gotten them through countless adventures, began to sputter and cough, as if struggling to breathe in the oppressive atmosphere. The radio, which had been blasting their favorite tunes just moments before, erupted in a cacophony of static and blood-curdling screams. Panic started to set in. They tried to turn around to retrace their steps, but Shadow Road seemed to twist and turn back on itself, leading them further into its depths. They were trapped. As night fell, the true horror of their situation became terrifyingly clear. Shadowy figures began to appear in the woods that pressed in on either side of the road. Glowing eyes watched them from the darkness, and disembodied whispers seemed to slither through the trees. The friends huddled together in the car, their fear a tangible thing. They had stumbled into something ancient and evil, something that wanted them gone, or worse. They spent the night trapped on Shadow Road, tormented by the unseen horrors that surrounded them. The car's engine sputtered its last, plunging them into darkness. The friends huddled together, their faces illuminated by the eerie glow of their phones, which were rapidly losing battery. Just when they thought all hope was lost, the first rays of dawn pierced through the oppressive darkness. The shadowy figures retreated, melting back into the woods as if they had never been. The friends wasted no time in starting to push their car, desperate to escape the clutches of Shadow Road. They finally stumbled out of the woods, blinking in the bright sunlight, their clothes torn and their faces etched with terror. They abandoned the car on the side of the road, not daring to look back. They never spoke of what they experienced on Shadow Road, but the memory of that night, of the oppressive darkness and the unseen horrors that lurked within it, would forever haunt their dreams. A chilling reminder that some roads are best left untraveled. So, the next time you're planning a road trip, remember these tales from the highway's dark heart. Keep your eyes on the road, your doors locked, and maybe think twice before you take your next road trip. Or at least, who you pick up along the way. You never know what might be lurking just beyond the reach of your headlights. Sweet dreams.